Today, we're diving into the huge anti-government protests that are just sweeping across Iran and the regime's really drastic response to them. A whole nation is going dark, and we need to talk about why. And we're going to start with this really stark fact. Internet monitoring groups are confirming it. The Islamic Republic has pretty much pulled the plug on the entire country. It's a move designed to stop information from getting out of Iran, and, well, it tells you just how serious things on the ground have become. But even in that darkness, you can hear voices rising. This is one of the main things being chanted in the streets. It's a simple, super powerful demand that gets right to the heart of what this movement is all about. And it's echoing way beyond Iran's borders. Okay, so first, let's just get a sense of the scale of what's happening. This is not some small, isolated event. Nope. This is a nationwide movement, and it seems to be picking up steam. I mean, look at this. Demonstrations are flaring up in dozens of cities all over the country. We're seeing huge crowds, not just in the capital, Tehran, but in other major hubs like Mashhad, Shiraz, and Isfahan. That kind of geographic spread is a really big deal. It shows the unrest is anything but contained. And what's really fascinating here is who is out there protesting. Reports from the ground are describing these really diverse crowds. So this isn't just one slice of society. You've got men and women, young and old, all coming out together. It just shows you how broad the frustration with the current regime really is. And to put a number on it, data from human rights groups shows these demonstrations have spread to over 100 different locations in 20 of the country's 30 provinces. Just think about that for a second. This is not just a big city thing. It's one of the largest, most widespread waves of protest Iran has seen in years. So, with protests spreading this fast and this wide, what's the government's move? Well, it's an information blockade. The regime has done this before during moments of crisis. By taking the country almost completely offline, they're trying to control the story and stop protesters from organizing and, crucially, from sharing images with the rest of the world. So the big question is, why now? What's going on? Well, the answer seems to be this toxic mix of total economic despair and this really deep political anger that's been simmering for a long time. Just look at this number, 42%. That was the official inflation rate in just a single month. For an ordinary Iranian, that means the cost of just basic stuff is shooting through the roof, making everyday life a real struggle for survival. And then there's this, something that hits every single person. The national currency has totally collapsed. The rial has lost about half its value against the US dollar just this year. That means people's life savings are, for all practical purposes, being wiped out. It's battering businesses and just straining family budgets to the absolute breaking point. And the really crucial point here is that this economic pain, which is definitely fueled by long-term international sanctions, is hitting everyone. We're seeing specific groups, shopkeepers, traders, even university students, staging their own protests, shutting down major markets, and holding demonstrations on campus. But this goes way beyond just economics. This chant, aimed right at Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, shows that the anger is at its core political. Protesters aren't just asking for the economy to get better, they're demanding the end of the Islamic government itself. Now, this particular wave of demonstrations was really kicked off by calls from different opposition groups. One of the key figures here is Reza Pahlavi. He's the exiled son of the Shah, the monarch who was overthrown way back in the 1979 Islamic Revolution. He urged people from his base in the US to hit the streets, and it's pretty clear a lot of people listened. Now, to really get what's happening, you have to look back. This is not happening in a vacuum at all. It's just the latest chapter in a struggle that's been going on for decades between the Iranian people and the ruling regime. So let's connect some dots here. Since the '79 revolution, you've seen these waves of protest. A lot of people are comparing what's happening now to those huge demonstrations back in 2022, the ones that were sparked by the death of Mahsa Amini. And what we're seeing today are the largest protests since that moment. And the regime? Well, it has a very clear playbook for how to deal with this kind of dissent. Time and time again, these waves of protest have been met with an iron fist. The government has shown repeatedly that it is more than willing to use force to keep its grip on power. So what's the official story from the government side? Well, the supreme leader has actually come out and said that some of the protesters' grievances are valid. But he then quickly pivots, blaming external forces, specifically Israel, for stirring up trouble to destabilize the country, which is, a very familiar tactic used to try and delegitimize the movement. And that brings us to our final section here. With protests raging and the internet cut, Iran is really at a critical crossroads. So what in the world happens next? Yeah, it's so important to remember these protests are not happening in a bubble. The regime is already under a ton of pressure. They're juggling multiple crises all at once: severe water shortages, worsening air pollution, those crippling economic sanctions, and the constant fear of military strikes on its nuclear program. And this, right here, is really the heart of the whole dynamic. There's a clear historical pattern in Iran. Every single round of popular protest has been answered with an even bigger, more forceful round of state repression. And the government's immediate response this time with threats and the internet blackout, it really suggests this time won't be any different. Which leaves us all with the ultimate question. The Ayatollah's regime has been put on notice by its own people, who've been fighting for so long and so hard. But with this cycle of defiance and repression so deeply, deeply entrenched, you just have to wonder, will this time be any different?